Hey, my name is Mike, and in this video, I'll be diving into 5 of the best Bluetooth headphones you can buy under $200, and not just talking about what they are, but rather testing them head to head and giving you real results and a real comparison for the sound, the active noise cancellation, the microphones, everything you need to consider to find the right pair for you. Because let's be honest, we don't all want to spend $350 or $450 on a pair of Bluetooth headphones. And so there is a lot of variety on this table right here in these headphones. I'll tell you what the competitors are in a second, but I was genuinely really surprised by this video. Some things had great sound, some had terrible sound, some had great features, others stripped back features for basically no reason at all other than to make you buy the flagship, and I still don't know the final results. I have all the scores here. I didn't add them up. I'll do that at the end of the video and see which one is truly the best of the best under $200. So the competitors we have in this video, first off, the brand new Sony Alt Wear. This came out probably about a month ago. I made a video about it. Definitely a bass heavy pair of headphones, but it's made by Sony, and as you could tell by the design, it is meant to be fairly similar to the older flagships, the X Mark III, even the X Mark IV to some extent, and we'll see that throughout this video. There are a lot of notes of Sony's flagship features in those headphones. Next up, of course, how could we forget the Sennheiser Accentum? Now these headphones, Sennheiser's known for their sound quality, but when they dial it down to a more affordable pair of headphones, what are the compromises going to be in regards to sound as well as features? You can see a fairly minimal appearance to these headphones. We'll dive into that later on in the video. Then our third contender, we have the brand new Beats Solo 4. The best-selling headphone under $200 for the past several years was the Beats Solo 3, and now with the new 4s, I love the design, I love the color. There's a lot that people really like about these headphones, but we'll see how they compete with the others on this table. Contender number 4, the JBL Live 770s NC. These again are selling for $199. So far everything that I mentioned was $199, except the Sennheisers, which are $179. Slight advantage there. And then the fifth competitor here, the Soundcore Space One. These are $99, and you might wonder, why didn't I use the 45s? The Space Ones being fairly new, I really wanted to include them to see what half the price of $200 really gives you. And Soundcore is known for giving a lot of features and a lot of functionality for a very low price, so I think this was going to be a very interesting contender despite being so much less expensive than the others on this table. So, going one category at a time, let's start off with actually a microphone test. So starting off with an indoor test with the Sony Alt Wear, you can let me know what the order you think is going to be for these headphones. So leave a comment as we go and kind of rank them. I'll also have my own rankings that I'll share a little bit later on in the video, but these are the Sony Alt Wear. Next up, we have the Sennheiser Accentum headphones. I can actually hear my voice fairly well through these. It's not the most natural sounding to me, but again, let me know what you think in an indoor environment here in a studio. On a phone call, it would sound something like this. Now these are the Beats Solo 4. These don't have a transparency mode, so I feel like I have to speak a little bit louder with these. I'll try not to, so the microphone test is fair. But let me know how these sound. Again, Beats is owned by Apple. They don't necessarily work together, but there's a lot that you do see similar on the Beats to the AirPods, AirPods Max, and things like that. So I do expect to have some pretty solid microphones on these headphones. Now for the JBL 770s, these do again have kind of a pass-through mode so I can hear my own voice while I'm talking. In fact, I don't really feel like I have to talk loud at all, but let me know how these sound to you. I think that I would expect these microphones to be pretty decent, although the sound I'm hearing of my own voice is giving me a lot of white noise, so we'll see how that actually is translated to a phone call like this. And contender number 5 for the indoor microphone test, of course, the Soundcore Space One. So now that we test them all in here, let's go outside and see how they sound in a louder environment, a more difficult sidewalk near a road where there's obviously a lot more ambient noise. All right, so mic test outside with the Sennheisers. Clearly a busy road behind me, so this should be pretty tough for a microphone. Next up, these are the JBL headphones outside. Okay, that was actually really loud. But let me know if you can hear what I'm saying. These are obviously the Beats. I would expect this microphone to be among the best. This car is really loud. But still, like, hopefully the microphones sound good. Let me know what you think of these. And these are the Sony Alt Wear. By the way, you might notice, speaking of wearing stuff, I've been wearing this ring in this video. I've been wearing it for a while now. This is actually the Ultra Human ring. So we're gonna make a video about that coming soon, and some other health tech I've been trying out. So if you want to see that, definitely get subscribed.
Now, these are the Soundcore Space One. I have to say, even though they're not coming in first for a lot of things, we wouldn't expect that at the price. They're still hanging in there, and I think it's really impressive considering they're half the price of the other ones on this list.
Now, the next two categories, I kind of differentiate. I have fit test and comfort test. So fit is going to be how well it stays on your head. If you're doing something more dynamic, running, working out, whatever it might be. And then comfort is going to be, for example, if you are sitting at a desk all day, which one is going to get hot? Which one's going to be more comfortable for a long term? So starting off with the fit test, number one here is actually the Sennheiser Accentum. I was very surprised, not a workout-oriented pair of headphones, of course, but because they have a stronger clamping force and relatively deep ear cups, I feel like I can wear them for a pretty long time. They don't shake off. And so yeah, like working out, these primarily because of the clamping force are going to be the best for working out. In second place then, the Beats Solo 4. This one's really not surprising. These are definitely designed for workouts. You see a lot of athletes wearing Beats. And so these don't go over your ears, they just go on your ears. So I think that's why they're not first place. So they don't have that extra security, but still a fairly strong clamping force. And I think it's no surprise that these are going to, stay in your head fairly well while you're working out. If I shake my head, they don't come off nearly as easily. I would say definitely moderate clamping force there. In third place, the JBLs. These do have a decent clamping force, but definitely much more gentle than the first two. The ear cups are definitely nice and deep, so it holds onto my head fairly well. It's very comfortable. I'll talk about that in the comfort category. But as far as like staying on your head, like tightening them does help quite a bit. But I could see them falling off if you're, doing something more dynamic other than just running. Then in fourth place, we've got the Sonys. These are a little bit bulkier and definitely a nice gentle clamp, as you can kind of see right there. So these are not going to stay on especially well if you're doing workouts. For me personally, I don't know if it's just like my head geometry or whatever, but like they stay on fairly well when I'm running or doing anything upright. But if I'm doing push-ups or kind of like burpees or anything like that, they do tend to work their way off my head a little bit more quickly. And then in last place, the Space One are a fairly loose pair of headphones with very large, a lot of kind of slop. I don't know if that's the right word, but like a lot of play in the tolerances. So kind of feels loose, like barely clamping onto my head, very, very loose, light clamping force. These are likely to fall off if you're doing really any kind of workout. So that's a fit test. Now going over to comfort, slightly different order here. In first place, I actually have to say the Sony Alt Wear. I really like how soft the headband is, as well as the ear cups. I can place them on, and even though they might get warm after several hours, because you do have a pretty tight seal there, which is going to be beneficial for active noise cancellation, but the trade-off is they could eventually get a little bit warm. Other than that, very soft cushion, 255 grams is not necessarily heavy. That's kind of on par with a lot of the flagship headphones from Sony. So I think those are very comfortable. Also tied in first place, I'm saying the JBL 770s. Again, a very soft cushion on here, a nice wide frame that gives you a gentle, even clamping force everywhere. The ear cups are deep enough that I don't think my ears aren't really touching, so I don't think that's uncomfortable. I think these get a little bit less hot for me personally than the Sonys, but still a very, very comfortable pair of headphones. I'm tying these both in first place. Then moving down to third place, so tied in first, we also have a tie in third place between the Sennheisers and the Space One. Looking at the Space One, like I said, because they're such a gentle clamping force, these are actually very lightweight on my head, even though they're 259 grams. Technically, that's a little heavier. They just feel lightweight because it's such a gentle clamp. The only reason I didn't rank these better is because they do have very, very shallow ear cups, like you can see right there. So your ears may be touching the outside of that. And then, like I said, Sennheiser's kind of tied here. Deeper ear cups, but the clamping force is a little bit heavier. So after maybe an hour, 2 hours, something like that of wearing these, they can start to kind of get a little fatiguing on your temples or like the front, right above your ears like that. And then unfortunately in last place, the Beats, just because they go on my ears, so they kind of like press my ears down. Some people like that. For me personally, if I'm working for multiple hours wearing these headphones, it kind of just like feels weird on my ears. I really am not particularly fond of the on-ear headphones for comfort. So that's just me though. All right, so now diving into the controls of these headphones. Headphones have been around for so long. I'm always surprised that it's not more consistent with how the controls are set up on these. But in first place, my favorite, very similar to the flagships, are the Sony Alt Wear. Now, I know this is the second time Sony's coming in first place here. I promise it's not the whole theme of the video, but their controls, like I said, map very similar to their flagships. We have touchpads on the right side, as well as buttons on the left side. So the noise control, the Alt button, we'll talk about that in a minute, and of course power and Bluetooth are the buttons on the left side. And the right side, you have a touchpad to go up and down. You just swipe for volume, and you swipe forward and back to skip tracks. You can tap to play and pause and things like that. In second place for controls, I actually have to say the Beats, they didn't really make it too noisy. There's not a lot of buttons on here. All the buttons are on the left ear, and it's very intuitive. So you press up to go volume up, down for volume down, and the middle button is going to be play, pause, and stuff like that, answer phone calls or whatever. Now, I do wish there were slightly more controls on here, and they are very tactile, so very clicky, but still easy to find, easy to get it right, and that's what's most important in my opinion when you're controlling headphones. In third place are the JBLs. These have all their buttons on the right side, but unlike some of the other ones I'll show you in a second, the volume button, so they have 3 buttons in a cluster, but the middle button, the play pause button, kind of dips down a little bit, and so that's really beneficial in my opinion to kind of differentiate when you're trying to find the buttons on the back with your thumb on the back of the headphones there. There's also a touchpad on the outside for a quick play or pause, so that's kind of the summary of how those buttons work. On the other side, we also have our noise control and our Bluetooth buttons, so a lot of buttons on one side, plus of course the slider, which is going to be for your controls. I'm actually going to say the Soundcore Space One are tied in third place for controls, so they have a lot of buttons. On the left side, power and noise cancellation. On the right side, play, pause, which also you can skip tracks if you double or triple press that. We have volume up and volume down, and then really interestingly, the left side does work as a touchpad, and they have what they call Easy Chat. So if you're wearing them, you touch and hold, you'll be able to like hold a quick conversation. It turns on transparency, turns your music down. So I think that's kind of a cool feature that they do have with that. I wish it was a little more customizable, but at least right now, pretty nice that they have it. In fifth place, the Sennheisers I think are very bad. Sennheiser needs to fix these controls. We have 4 buttons on them, all very tiny, all right next to each other, and there's only one little extrusion to kind of indicate the center button, which is your play pause button. So when you're wearing these all the way in the back with your thumb, which is larger than all those buttons, you have to kind of feel and guess, like, all right, is that a button? Is that the down button? Or is that the up button? So it ends up being, like, for me, I just take my phone out and control it. It's not worth it to use these headphones with such tiny little buttons as their controls. Now, moving on to the next category, this one's way more subjective. This is going to be the aesthetic. So feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you think about the aesthetics of these headphones. But in my opinion, probably the obvious first choice here is going to be the Beats. Anyone buying the Beats is most likely buying them for their aesthetics. It's going to be a big part of this. And it's also, in my opinion, a big part of why they were such a popular pair of headphones since their initial launch. So these come in 3 colors. They're very subtle. Like I said, not a lot of buttons on the outside, a clean look on these. You see a lot of pro athletes wearing them. So even if you don't like how they look, it's hard to argue that they wouldn't be like extremely socially acceptable, kind of like AirPods, how they just, everyone wears them. So no one's going to look at your headphones and say, wow, those are ugly headphones. They're going to say, nice Beats. I think the brushed metal accents look good. And like I said, I just really like this blue color. The other colors look good as well. But in second place here, I actually have a tie in second place between the Sennheisers and the JBLs. And I'll explain why, because it seems like a very strange tie. The JBLs, I think, makes sense as a very clear second. There's 4 different colors. One of them, I think, is a really nice gold color, so you can kind of be a little more flashy with them if you wanted, or a little more understated with the black one here. The fabric headband, I think, looks really nice. Of course, kind of a shinier plastic that's meant to look more like a metal accent, even though it is plastic. Again, makes it look a little bit nicer. The only reason I wouldn't rank these higher is because when you put them on, they do stick out somewhat far, and there's kind of like 2 levels that I'm not particularly fond of. But regardless, I think they're a very comfortable pair of headphones to just feel good about wearing in public. I'm tying that with the Sennheisers because even though these only come in 2 colors, just black and white, they're simple, subtle headphones. If you're not trying to stand out and you just want a pair of headphones that doesn't look weird, these are just plain old headphones. There's not a whole lot going on there. They're very subtle. They're not going to be a fashion statement. So for some people, that could be exactly what you're looking for. In fourth place, the Sonys. These come in 3 different colors. This one they call Forest Gray. And the reason that I didn't rank these higher is because they do stick out rather far, in my opinion. If these were a little bit slimmer, I think these would be higher ranking, but still not a bad looking pair of headphones. And then unfortunately in last place, these just do look a little bit cheap in my opinion. It's supposed to look like bluish metal or aluminum. It's definitely plastic. The whole thing's plastic, of course. But these are just, again, a larger pair of headphones from the side profile. It just looks a little bit larger, a little more gaudy. But again, for the price, not necessarily bad. And you can get quite a few different colors of the Soundcore Space Ones. Moving on to the next category, probably the one that I think is most interesting. This is going to be the sound quality. One common theme among all of these is that they are definitely like a consumer-centric, bassy, U-shaped profile on the sound. So you're getting a lot more bass, definitely a lot of high-end, usually recessed mids, and like that's kind of the summary on all of these. How much bass you're getting is going to be the big variable there, and I would encourage you not to go with just the bassiest one, because if you haven't heard the bassiest one, then it might be too much bass for you. Like it really, for a lot of music, like I think it's too much bass. Some people just love as much bass as possible. And if that's your situation, then yeah, go with the bassy one. But going through these kind of in my order of what I think sound the best, not even by a big margin. I think the Sennheisers sound the best, but it doesn't sound like what I would expect from Sennheiser. So these definitely lack some clarity in the mids. The bass is very dominant, not as bad as the other four with having too much bass. Still a lot of bass on here. You're getting some pretty warm male vocals that honestly I think does pretty well. The hi-hats are pretty decent. I do find that I turn the volume up a lot, which is kind of an interesting little like subconscious thing I notice on headphones that don't have a lot of detail and a lot of clarity and a really good balance. I end up turning the volume up more because I'm looking for those details that are kind of eclipsed by other frequency bands with the headphones. And kind of going with that note, the instruments are not very separated, but generally, like I said, these are going to sound the best out of this table right here. A little bit warmer. If you go in the EQ, you can make them sound pretty decent, but they're not going to sound like the flagship headphones out there. In second place, we have the JBL 770s. These are also very bass focused, but it feels like kind of a cleaner bass than some of the other ones on this table. Focused a lot more on like the bass guitar riffs, which I think is kind of nice if you're listening to rap or rock or anything like that. Not like the best profile out there, but definitely enough detail. I think it's kind of what you'd expect from a $200 pair of JBL headphones. And so I really can't complain too much about those in second place. Third place, this might surprise you. So Beats have been doing a really good job of being less and less bassy with each iteration. So these, again, definitely less bassy, slightly bloated mids and low mids as well. They definitely lack a little bit of clarity. They can sound a little bit dull and congested, but that's just pointing out the negatives of these. I think on this table, these sound probably the most balanced out of all of them, just not quite as much fidelity and clarity as I would like to see. But for Beats, I was very impressed. I expected like substantially worse. Like older Beats models just didn't have great sound, and so they're definitely moving in the right direction here. In fourth place, I'm only giving these fourth place because they have just like an unbelievable amount of bass. So going back to that Alt button on the Sony Alt Wear, it's kind of like the whole thing here. Ultimate bass is really the idea. If you leave it off, you have an incredible amount of bass. If you press it once, you have like a mind-blowing amount of bass. And if you press it again, you just have like a skull-rattling bass that you really can't hear anything else in the song other than like the bass shaking your head. And so if you want the experience of massive bass, these are number one. These are your headphones. Like I've never heard so much bass on a pair of headphones. But if you want to hear other parts of the song, like lyrics, for example, or like hi-hats or literally anything other than bass, then you're really gonna have to do a lot of EQing to kind of get that out of these headphones. That's kind of what I have to say about them. There's a lot of bass, like a lot of bass on those. And then in last place, the Soundcore Space One are actually quite impressive for their price. Talking about what I think could be improved, they do sound a little bit thin, they do lack detail, and they're a little bit like bassy and muddy, kind of as we'd expect for this kind of class of headphones. But there are a lot of EQ options, and so even though these are in fifth place, I don't think they're necessarily far behind the other ones. I think, like I said, lacking a little bit of detail, but for $100, I was fairly impressed. If you only care about sound quality out of all of these, and you also only care about money, okay, so if you care about money and sound, these are not the worst. Like, they're not the worst for $100. But what the Space One do well, which I thought was very, very interesting, is actually the active noise cancellation. And so getting into the rankings of the ANC, in first place, actually, let me rewind. Let me explain this test. What I do is I play white noise at a set distance away. I turn that volume up until the headphones are no longer able to block it out to like a normal audible level. And so then I measure the volume with a decibel meter where I am to see how loud the white noise actually is. And that indicates relatively how powerful the ANC is. And so in first place, it's really no surprise, Sony took a lot of their flagship elements and brought them down to the Sony Alt-Wear. The ANC is one of them. So these have, in my opinion, a very strong ANC going up to level 56, according to my test. Then in second place, we actually had a tie between the JBL Live 770s and, believe it or not, in second place, the Space One. These have surprisingly good active noise cancellation. For $100, I really did not expect that. So that is beyond impressive for being half the price of the other ones and still beating them out. In fourth place then, so first place tied in second, then we go to fourth place. In fourth place were the Sennheisers, which wasn't bad, it was respectable, but then in last place, unfortunately has to be the Beats because these don't have any active noise cancellation at all. They just block it passively, and so I still recorded how much they were able to block passively. They do have some pretty thick foam on there, and it did block sounds out, but definitely not to the level of the ANC we're getting with the others. But the opposite of ANC is the transparency. Sometimes you want to hear everything around you, and transparency is really important. So in first place here, again, kind of usually you see a very similar result with ANC and transparency. If you have good microphones and a good processor, they tend to both be kind of good. And so the good one here, again, Sony really pulled ahead. It sounds louder than the other ones, sounds more natural. It doesn't really sound too robotic, so I think they did a good job. In second place, Sennheiser surprisingly did a pretty decent job here. I was able to hear everything fairly well, hold a conversation and stuff like that. In third place, the JBLs. Fourth place, the Space One. I thought that these sounded a little bit stuffy and a little bit robotic. I think a software update could easily fix that though. Like I know these are capable of better transparency than they do have right now. And then in last place, again, the Beats just, they don't even have a transparency mode, no pass-through mode, which I thought was kind of surprising for these headphones. Like they should be capable of doing that with the chip that's inside, but whatever, they don't offer that. If you want that, the Studio Pro from Beats does offer that. Now, when it comes to features on these headphones, taking a look at the apps, in first place, I have to say the Sonys, again, Sony brought a lot of their flagship stuff straight down to here, which makes sense. Their software is one of their best features. You can see on the app, we've got 4 little tabs starting off with status. They have adaptive sound control, which kind of, I leave it disabled, but if you walk around, it'll kind of change based on what you're doing. So if you are at work versus at home versus on a bus or whatever, it'll change all the settings for you. It's something I don't use often, but it's there if you want it. If you go to sound, you can do ambient sound control and choose if you have noise cancellation on or off. Of course, we have the equalizer down here, and there is an EQ test based on, like, you wear them and it kind of, can you hear sounds, and that'll help you decide the best EQ for you. You can also use 360 reality audio on here, which is great. Sony has like kind of a full stack from like Sony Productions literally makes movies. And so being able to watch those movies using 360 reality audio, like you get the experience that is intended for those. You can choose your priority on your Bluetooth connection if you want something more stable or higher fidelity. DSEE Extreme is going to be up-resing audio. So if you listen to lower resolution audio, they kind of use AI to upscale it. It's something that could be potentially beneficial if you're listening to older tracks from a lower quality. If we go over to system, of course, we do have multi-point connectivity. I love to see that. We have a voice assistant control if you want to ask Google Assistant, for example, to turn the volume up or down on your headphones. We can customize the controls here. You can automatically play and pause when you take the headphones on, take them off and put them back on. And if you go to services, we have Spotify tap and some other things like that. So I think that's really beneficial. Now in second place, we have the JBL 770s, as you can see right here. And there's a lot to like about the app here. We do have spatial sound. We have what they call Personify, which is going to, again, kind of help you figure out the right EQ for you. We have an equalizer down here. We have a low volume dynamic EQ. So a lot of times if you turn the volume down, the same EQ is not perceived the same way. So having something more dynamic is really beneficial to hear like the balance you want at any volume you're listening to. We have spatial sound, like I mentioned before. We have gestures, which can be customized down here. We have smart audio and smart video. So if I tap on that, it tells you a little bit more about that. It's not something that I use particularly often, but it'll prioritize either a lower latency or it'll give you better audio quality. I usually leave it on audio mode. We have auto play pause, which is really nice. If you take the headphones off, they'll automatically do that. You can choose the personal sound level, the voice assistant, the voice prompts, the maximum volume limiter, especially if you're giving these to kids. That could be really useful to protect them. And you have an auto power off feature down on the bottom as well. So a lot in a very clean and simple app. It's, of course, is no surprise, Soundcore is a great app as well. So in third place, the Space One, as you can see here, have quite a few features for a very low price. So if we go to mode, you can have a custom transparency mode, able to choose how loud that is. You can enable wind reduction. You can also toggle to noise cancellation as well. They have easy chat, as I mentioned earlier, in controls, but you can do speak to chat as well, where as you just start talking, it'll automatically turn your music down and go into transparency mode. If you sing along with music, that's not going to be ideal, but for many people, that could be really useful. And safe volume here as well, another great thing to kind of help you protect your own ears, or children, or whoever's using these headphones. In fourth place, unfortunately, I have to say the Sennheiser Accentum, just because, well, not just because, but one of the big things, I hate the name of this app. I can never find it. It's called Smart Control. If you put these headphones on, you think, all right, let's look for the Sennheiser app. Nope, can't search for Sennheiser. Maybe headphones app. Nope, it has to be Smart Control. I don't know why they named it that. I think that's very unfortunate. But looking at what these can actually do, unfortunately, they do not have autoplay or auto pause. They do have multi-point, so connecting to multiple devices is possible, but other things they have, like multi-point, you can choose what it's connected to right here. Right now, it's my laptop. We have an equalizer, we have sound check, we have sound zones, which is kind of like what I showed you with Sony earlier, where depending on what you're doing, it'll kind of change the profile here. And then on the bottom, you have your ANC. Other than that, we can go over to settings. There's not a whole lot to do here. Auto power off, you can choose the time on that. You can choose the codec you're using, and you could like reset it. That's kind of all you can do on here. Not a whole lot, but they get the job done. Now, as far as features go, the Beats are either tied in second place or tied in fourth place. So it depends on which ecosystem you're in. The benefit is that they are dual native, meaning they're going to pair very quickly and pop up on your phone, whether you're iOS or Android. However, in the Apple ecosystem, you do have the advantage of the seamless switching that you're not getting with any other headphones on this table. So your iPad, your iMac, your iPhone, any Apple products, these are going to connect and switch between all of them within your Apple account. So that's a huge positive there. They also have a really cool feature that allows you to mute yourself when you're on a call. So in a video call, for example, that could be really beneficial. And looking at the app, this is the Android app right here. You can see that you're able to like rename them. You can look at product features and customize a little bit about the controls. Otherwise, you're not going to be doing a whole lot of customization with these headphones, especially not on the app there. They do not have auto play and auto pause, which I think is very strange for headphones of this level to not have, or especially this style. But regardless, that is what it is. Now, we have two more categories before deciding on what the overall winner is. One category of the two is going to be the battery life, and the other one is going to be the case that protects the headphones. But starting off with the battery, we have a three-way tie in first place. This is the claimed battery life, by the way, not an actual tested battery life, because everyone listens at different volumes, different environments with different adaptive noise cancellation settings. So just looking at the claimed settings for this, take it with a grain of salt. Three-way tie between the Sennheisers, the Beats, and the JBLs, all claiming to have 50 hours. Then in second place, I know it should be fourth place, but because it's so close, I really don't want to dock them on points for this one. The Soundcore Space One gives you 42 hours per charge. Again, very impressive, easily getting you through an entire work week for most people. And then in last place are going to be the Sonys, which are only giving you 30 hours, still a very respectable battery life, but not the 50 we're seeing with the others. In the final category being the case, only one of these comes with a hard shell case, and that is actually the Sonys. They come with a nice hard shell case with a zipper on there to protect the headphones, to house your cables and stuff like that. In second place are the Beats, which come with a semi-hard case, like it's a stiff fabric case with a zipper on the top, kind of like a big old coin pouch. And these fold up, they sit in there with your cables and stuff like that. Tied in third place, the Soundcore and the JBL each come with a fabric case. And in last place, Sennheiser didn't give us anything in the box to protect these headphones. Additionally, as one other note, all of these come with a USB Type-C port and a 3.5mm jack, except the Sennheisers, which only have a USB Type-C port. So you will be able to get audio in through that if you get the right cable, but I just don't know why on this price point they didn't include a 3.5mm port. But let's add up the scores and see which one actually came in first place here. All right, so when you add up all of those scores, you want the lowest score to win, right? It came in first place the most and fifth place the least. And looking at these, even though Sony came in first place the most, like they did very well, they didn't win overall. In fact, the winner overall was the JBL 770s. These only came in first place once, but every other time they were either second or third place. So across the board, they were a really solid pair of headphones with no major weaknesses, and that just gave them overall the best ranking score. So these are, I guess, my recommendation. Like, these are a really solid pair of headphones that I think a lot of people would really enjoy. But in second place are the Sonys. These have only 1 point behind the JBLs, so very, very close to first place. And like I said, they came in first place for the best controls, the most comfort, the best active noise cancellation, the best transparency mode, the best features, and the best case. So there's a lot to really like about those, but they did take a hit from their sound quality. Their microphones were not quite as competitive as the other ones, and the aesthetics, I think, could be improved a little bit. But if you're okay with those compromises, the Sonys are a great pair of headphones to buy. In third place, I think it's no surprise here, the Beats are very middle of the pack. There's a lot that they did very, very well. Aesthetics, for example, they did very well. The microphones were fantastic. The battery life is great on these. They have a nice case that they come with, but they did fall behind because of some of the missing features, like the transparency and the active noise cancellation, which at $200, I think is kind of pretty necessary for them to have included. But still, if you're okay with that compromise, a solid pair of headphones that looks really nice and is a very compact, lightweight design. In fourth place then were the Sennheisers. Their saving grace here was their sound quality and their simple, clean, minimal aesthetics, but the compromises, as you might remember, were the controls. Having really tiny buttons just was not in their favor. They also came in last place from the indoor microphone test, and they kind of came in fourth place on a couple things like active noise cancellation and the features. And then in last place, but really by no significant margin, were the Soundcore Space One. I think we kind of knew this because they are half the price. So the question becomes, what are the compromises you actually made? And is that worth half the price of the other ones on this table? And so the compromises, the aesthetics were one of the compromises. They're a little bit loose, same thing with the fit, a little bit loose, a lot of play in the design here, so they feel a lot cheaper. They didn't have the best transparency mode or the best sound quality, but other than that, they give you a lot of features at a very low price. So if $200 is on the high side, these are still a great pair of headphones to buy that kind of were able to hang with the rest of them for many categories in this video. So that is my analysis of the best headphones under $200 you can buy right now. I'm sure there are a ton of other headphones out there that you might be upset that I didn't include in this video, but I had to draw the line somewhere to really just talk about 5. But leave a comment below. Let me know what your favorite pair of headphones is, if they're in this video or not. And maybe I'll make another updated video in the future talking about the best headphones under $150 or under $100 or whatever the price point may be. Since you watched the video this long, I hope that means you enjoyed it. Please consider subscribing for more videos like this. I'm Mike O'Brien. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.